What if I told you the chapter you just played was never supposed to have a sequel? Mob Entertainment originally planned Chapter 5 to be the last chapter. So why are we getting more? Hey everyone, it's your friend Thick Noodles, and welcome back to another video about Poppy Playtime Chapter 5. Now, the question in the intro wasn't rhetorical. Why are we getting a Chapter 6? And the answer comes to us from a Twitter Q&A of Isaac Plays, who is the original director of Poppy Playtime Chapters 1 through 3. He does these every time a new chapter comes out, and it really shines a light on the development and lore of all of Poppy Playtime. Now, just a quick disclaimer that he put up after he did his Q&A. He says, I've answered a lot of questions the last 24 hours. Remember, anything that I confirmed may be out of date. Now, I'm not at Mob anymore. I can only speak on the version of the story that was written 2 years ago. So with that in mind, let's go through this Q&A. Chapter 5 is out, so here we go. Ask me anything and I'll do my best to answer, unless it's about unrevealed lore. Chapter 5 spoilers ahead. First though, huge congrats to everyone who gave their all to make this chapter happen. My highlights were the Ms. Gracie segments and Huggy's memories. They were creative and haunting. The dollhouse was really memorable too. And no bugs. Huge. Yeah, the Miss Gracie scenes and memories scene of what happened to Huggy, Wuggy, and how each of these children and monsters were indoctrinated was haunting and horrible. I agree, one of the most memorable parts of Chapter 5. So, someone asks, did they use your story outline? Remember, Isaac finished at Mob Games after Chapter 3, so he had a full story outline for the way the story would go. And he says, well, no. The original story ended in Chapter 5, but I'm not sure how long it'll go now. They could still make the old ending happen, but some story changes make it very unlikely. It is sad to know the old finale is gone, but I don't blame them. So, of course, he's not going to tell us what that finale was until we see the actual finale, and then he'll give us, okay, this is how they ended it, this is how I was going to end it, so we're probably going to have to wait until Chapter 6. I'm assuming Chapter 6 is going to be the last chapter, and I have reasons for that, and I'll put those in a new video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see that. He continues with, when someone hands you a story, it's hard to execute that vision without them. It makes more sense to bring in some new people with their own fresh ideas. Plus, the outline I left behind was brief and needed a lot of fleshing out. Maybe you'll end up liking the new story even more. Now, he says you because he wrote the original story, and of course it's personal to him. I have a feeling that no matter what the story does, if it doesn't follow his finale, he's gonna be let down just because that's how he wrote it, even though the new ending might actually be better and more enjoyable to fans of the series. Then he talks about what was the most anticipated part of Chapter 5, the prototype reveal. And he says Chapter 5's prototype is a pretty different character from the original, both the way he acts and the way he looks. He was very similar to the catnap shrine, and I know as soon as he revealed his face and body, everyone's minds went back to Chapter 3 of that catnap shrine, and it's like, bro did not understand the assignment at all. But he had a jester head, so always has had a jester head from the original design, but with a body of scrap, human parts, and the remains of toys he wished to make an example of, which they did actually put in, but not in the same way. There are no PJ Pugapilla, there's no smiling critters, none of that, no Bob the Skeleton. In fact, he says there were several small toys, plus Mommy, Catnap, and Doughy's heads, which I don't understand how. I mean, we ground him up like into Play-Doh. One of my favorite cut bits was the several grab packs in his back, which is a huge design change, which he could use to lift himself and chase after you. We never finalized the design, but here's some amazing fan arts that's rather close. So we can look at what he had imagined the prototype would look like. And this looks a lot like the actual prototype, I mean, minus the head looking really super sad. But we've got Catnap here. We've got the claws. We've got this extra grab pack arm here. Actually, 2 of them. 2 grab pack arms, and a lot the same, actually. This one is not much different. This looks way more like the actual design of Chapter 5 versus what Catnap did. And then we have this one here, which, okay, this is a lot more like what we saw in fan art, in a lot of the animations prior to Chapter 5, what people were predicting the prototype would look like, with the skull head like that, a lot more metal on it. The buzz saw that we've seen in a few YouTube shorts. We've got a drill. We've got poor Bunzo, man, looking awful. This is Mommy's body as it came off of Chapter 2. Huggy's arm. Although I have like there's sort of a hang up I have with the design of this and of the actual Chapter 5 one. Isn't it like Huggy didn't lose his arm, he only lost his hand? I don't get why we have Huggy's arm on everything and not just his hand. He still had the arm. Kissy Missy's arm, which I don't even see here, that one makes sense. So, is your story done? Meaning the original outline that Isaac wrote at the end of Chapter 3, or maybe he wrote it before, but this was how this series was supposed to go, a really brief outline. He says probably yes.
But if you love the story made for Poppy, I think you'll love the Dead Seed. It's horror. It's one of the best games I've ever gotten involved.
Yes. He's plugging his own game here. We played this game almost a year ago, and I agree, it was amazing. Super unique horror game. If you haven't tried it, please do. And then actually, wait a second. Oh, so if you do like Dead Sea, and also put together a game in a few months, and I think it might be the best story I've ever written. And guys, he wrote the story of Poppy Playtime 1 through 3, along with some elements of 4 and 5. He knows what he's doing, and if he thinks it's the best story he's ever written, well, actually, I want to see this. Okay, diversion from Poppy Playtime, and this is Feed the Pit. Welcome to the ECC.
We're hungry for new members, and you're invited to join the Brotherhood. Leave behind your money, family, and dreams. And join our flesh as we follow the powerful, ever-growing Elijah.
Elijah?
Like to a higher purpose. Your role is the seeker, and you will seek non-believers. Those who are lost in the woods. Those who could not digest Elijah's blessings. Using our special rituals, you can speak to the spirits of the forest. They'll help you find those who are lost. Watch for unnatural wildlife.
Whoa!
Be rather persistent, unpredictable.
Unnatural wildlife. Yeah.
Elijah will be happy.
Elijah. Whoa, that's spooky. Don't shower. Ew. Oh. Oh. Okay. Elijah. I've never spoken to Elijah. Only Judah Shiloh. What the? Oh man. Elijah's hungry. Feed him. Elijah needs a Snickers, dude. He ain't himself. Feed the Pit. Oh, okay. Well, we'll be playing that. Back to Poppy Playtime. Sorry about that. Other characters. Outimals, Chum, and Giblet are brand new, so Isaac had never written those characters. Lilly had some early concept art when I left. At the time, she had 2 big braids that she walked with, kind of like Doc Ock from Spider-Man. However, she wasn't part of the outline I left, as I wasn't sure if I could fit her into Chapter 5. So the character concept was there, but he wasn't sure how to use her. And this might be actually one of the reasons that Chapter 5 turned into Chapter 6, or was split into Chapter 5 Part 2. Isaac couldn't figure a way to fit her in because of, I don't know what the plot of Chapter 5 was supposed to be. Maybe it would be too long, but Mob Games loved the character, and geez, the voice actress absolutely killed it. But I have seen some like fan videos when Lilly was first introduced that she was walking on those braids, so they kind of predicted that, which is pretty impressive. Original plans for the Doctor. This is a 4-part tweet. This one's hard to describe because I think a lot of the differences would be in how the boss fight plays, as it's hard to remember exactly because unlike Chapter 5, I didn't have 4 heavily planned from the beginning. So he's saying here also that at the end of Chapter 3, he had already planned chapter 5 and how it was all going to end. And not what was going to happen between chapter 3 and chapter 5. There was a lot of debate about it before I left. On the story side, I remember there was a lot of watching and talking to you along the way. Early on, you'd visit his room the first time. He's been watching since the start, controlling every camera, every door. He crashed the train. And I don't know if that is true now. That was originally supposed to be part of the story, that he was the one who crashed the train. And maybe in chapter 6, they'll finally throw back to that where he explains this. You hear his tale, and then in a trick, he'd send you away to the factory's surface with Yarnaby. You claw your way back down. So back to the factory's surface, like chapter 1, maybe go through that other door we never actually go through in chapter 1 on the other side of Huggy Wuggy, and destroy his gargantuan machine self piece by piece from the inside out as he begs you to stop while trying to kill you with his smaller form. As he tries to barter everything, you realize that this absolute monster who pretended to be so high and mighty isn't such once he's truly lost, and he realizes it too, thus completing his arc and spelling the end of the Doctor's reign. It went something like that. Dude, that sounds kind of incredible. I think that the Doctor is an amazing character. I think that that's the reason they're bringing him back in chapter 6, because like just pulling out a key card, like that was sort of anticlimactic. The end of the Doctor, it seemed like it wasn't enough for Harley Sawyer. I really like this, and I mean, Dowie was an interesting character and everything, but I think that this being chapter 4 might have been a better game. It's fun to get swept away in the flood of what ifs, but just remember, it's a lot easier to critique something than it is to make it. I'm certain my old ideas would have had lots of flaws if they actually got made, but still I love them and I will keep sharing them. So Razbowski asks, when are we gonna learn who or what the player is? Dude is invincible, and he says this is a complex one. Originally didn't plan to give it any focus, however, as the chapters went on, they poked more and more at the player's identity, especially in chapter 3 and 4. So despite the initial plans to have them remain anonymous, I realized around chapter 4's launch that it would be a waste not to reveal this. And so would have done it in chapter 5 in his original script and plan. But my ideas for the identity were not something I ever shared with anyone. So I don't know who Mob is planning for the player to be now. We will see, which is insane because Mob Games obviously shares the same idea on the player's identity being important. And obviously it is to us in the fandom. And I wonder if he keeps this a secret to himself. He's never told anyone. Will Mob Games end up choosing the same person or that character, or have a similar idea as to who the player was, and maybe it'll be as good as his idea? Would we have gotten more scenes with Elliot Ludwig and his history in your original vision? And Isaac says, I had a lot of Elliot Ludwig stuff planned in chapter 5. Maybe they'll still use some of it, but was going to be used to reveal a lot of lore that is not known, so I'm not sure. So, I mean, this lore has to be revealed. If we're going to chapter 6, and I'm assuming it's the final chapter, this lore has got to get revealed. So maybe the Elliot Ludwig stuff he planned for chapter 5 was moved to chapter 6. And I thought this one was a really interesting question, kind of unrelated to chapter 5, but kind of not. By the time chapter 1 released, how much did you have planned out for the rest of the series by that time? Like, was there already prep for chapter 2, or was it just dropped immediately when chapter 1 was done? With that being like a relatively short game with not a ton of content in it, but lighting the fandom on fire, I would have thought that they were like a little bit of plans, but this really surprised me. Ironically, the most planned out chapter at that time was chapter 5. Past that, I knew the location of chapter 3, and we had a lot of details for 2, plus the whole lore had essentially been mapped out. And it's so funny that chapter 4 is sort of the forgotten chapter in throughout this interview. And if you look at Steam reviews, all of them are pretty good, except this one. Mixed. And it's never gotten better than mixed. But I find it so interesting that they had written it all the way through to the very end when it had only just started, like any good storyteller. Also interesting about the toys and what goes on and has gone on down in Playtime Co. There's a huge fight on TikTok over this. A lot of people are wondering if the prototype has aged, or is he still considered a child? I myself think some toys are children to this day, but the prototype is built different. So it really makes us wonder about his current state. It's a complex ethical question that I alone can't answer. Yes, these toys are growing up down here. So they do age, their minds do expand like our own. Their external physical features may not, like Poppy, but their brains are developing and they've been down here for a long time. But they're also missing out on the true human experience. I don't know what that makes them, but it's tragic. Who is your personal favorite character you created in the series? And he says, I think by the end, it would have been the prototype, but as it stands, probably Harley Sawyer. More about the prototype. Was the plan always for the prototype to be Ollie? I mean, the real Ollie, not just the mimic voice in the phone. Were there any other hints besides Chapter 3 radio to Ollie being Elliot's adopted son? And yeah, I mean, at the end of Chapter 4, there is a reference to there being a real Ollie a very long time ago, Poppy asks. But he says, yes, I think Ollie might have had a room in Chapter 3's Home Sweet Home. He did, but it was out of bounds and never used. Past that, I don't remember specific hints. I had left Mob by Chapters 4 and 5, so I'm not sure whether or not they remembered to tease it there. And they did at the end of Chapter 4. It always was the plan. Well, at least in Chapter 3, being that there was the radio and also the hidden room. And this one. Has the prototype been watching us since we arrived at Playtime in Chapter 1 with the cameras or something like that? Oh, yes, eyes everywhere. And this sort of confirms my video on the Poppy gel and why, first of all, it was our POV, but second, why the prototype helped us after stabbing us. He needs us. He's been watching us since Chapter 1 in the very beginning when he has Huggy Wuggy give us a key, and instead of chasing us out of the factory, chase us further into the factory. He's wanted us there the entire time for something and has been watching us since the very beginning. More about the prototype's personality. You said the prototype acted differently in the original story that he wrote. Can you give an example? And he said, yes, he was meant to be a very, very intelligent character. He spoke with very little malice and was far more focused on observation. I think the biggest writing difference is that the old prototype would never speak as though he knew he was the bad guy. That was the one thing he never got. He never understood that him protecting the toys and giving them a home in the way that he did was wrong. He just saw himself as their hero. But we're gonna have to wait until Chapter 6 to find out if Mob Games follows Isaac's outline as to how the game is finally going to end, or if we'll get a Poppy Playtime Chapter 7.